Hello everyone, this is Katish here. In this video, I'm going to go through the AQA Combined Science 2022 Chemistry Paper 1 Foundation Tier. This question is on the atomic structure and the periodic table. Now here is a 6-mark question and it focuses on a chemical reaction. And I think it's a required practical as well, where you're reacting metals with acids. Plan an investigation to find the order of reactivity of 3 metals. So let's say you have metal A, B, and C, and you're trying to figure out which is more reactive by using hydrochloric acid. Right? You should use the temperature change when each metal reacts with hydrochloric acid. Now, when an acid reacts with a metal, you would get salt plus water plus energy or heat energy being given out. Now, if it's giving out heat energy, you should be able to use a thermometer to measure the temperature change. So, mentioning that you're going to use a thermometer should get you a mark somewhere in your answer. Right? So how would you actually do this? Now let me show you a simple diagram that we could actually, of a setup that we can actually use. So, well, you will need the acid and you will need to react each of the metals in turn. Now you need to think carefully about control variables. You want to use the same amount of acid every single time. And you will need to use the same amount of metals for each of them, whichever metal that you're reacting. So those are control variables. Right? Now what you're measuring is the temperature change, which is your dependent variable. Right? And your independent variable is these 3 different type of metals because you're changing them on purpose. Right? So here's a simple diagram of the experiment setup. Right? All you would need is like a small polystyrene cup, and that you get coffee in, because that won't absorb any of the heat and it won't lose any of the heat. All the heat will actually stay in there. And you would add the acid and you would add a certain amount of the metal, let's say metal A, and you would close it so that any of the heat doesn't actually escape. And you would stick a thermometer in through the lid and you would measure the temperature change. To measure the temperature change, you would need to measure the starting temperature, right? Let's say you measure the temperature is here at the start and it goes up to there, and you work out the difference between these 2 points. Now the biggest difference, the metal that is most reactive will produce the most heat energy. That's our conclusion. So how do we write this step by step to get 6 marks? Here's a model answer. Right? I'm starting off by saying the metal that produces the highest temperature change will be the most reactive. So right, I'm right at the start, I'm saying the one which will give the most reactive will be producing the biggest temperature change. So the steps: measure a known volume. Let me change that into bullet points that I can actually number. Hold on. So let's select that and number them. Okay, so let's go to the pen again. So measure a known volume of hydrochloric acid. So I'm saying I'm giving a value, right? 25 centimeter cube, for example, using a measuring cylinder into a polystyrene cup. So I'm saying how much of the acid and what equipment I'm going to use it as well. Measure the initial temperature of hydrochloric acid with a thermometer. Right? Then add a known mass, in brackets I've said 5 grams of one metal, and stir. You want to make sure that it dissolves. Right? Then measure the highest temperature reached of the solution. Right? So it will slowly increase. Eventually that's going to cool down as well. So you want to record the highest temperature. And then determine the temperature difference, which is highest minus the initial temperature. You would want to repeat it with other metals, and at the same time you would want to repeat it for each metal. So you'll do the same thing for metal A 3 times for metal B, and 3 times for metal C. So you get an average or mean value to find which is giving out the biggest temperature change. And we want to mention about these variables. Keep the following variables constant: the mass and the physical state of the metal added. So you want to make sure that they're all in powder form, which would be the best, right? And the volume and the concentration of the acid as well. So you have to keep 4 different variables constant here. And then use the results to arrange the metals in order of reactivity. Remember, in the first bullet point we said the metal which is most reactive is going to give the biggest temperature change. So most reactive metal has the largest temperature change. That should give easily the 6 marks for this question. That brings us to the end of question number 7 and end of this paper as well. Thanks for watching. I will see you in the next video for the next paper.